So I used to be the person everyone could count on, and I don't mean that in a good way. And I mean that literally. Someone needed help with something? Yeah, I got you. Someone wanted to vent for 2 hours the night before my deadline? Yeah, I'm here. Someone made plans and just assume I was in without asking? Yeah, okay, sure. 9 o'clock, I'll be ready. And for a long time, I thought that was just what being a good person looked like. Like the metric for being someone worth keeping around was how available you were, how much you could give, how little friction you caused. I genuinely believe that. It was not in a conscious way. It was more like it was just the operating system running in the background. Be agreeable, be easy, and don't make it weird. The thing is, it worked. On the surface, it worked. People liked having me around. I never caused problems. I was reliable in that way where you could always count on me to just fall into whatever was needed. And I wore that like it was a personality trait. But there's this specific feeling I remember getting. Someone would ask me for something. I would rather be stretched, already tired, already behind on my own stuff, and I would say yes anyway. And then spend the rest of the day with this low, quiet resentment just sitting in my chest. It was not even at them, it was at myself. Because I knew I could have said no. I just couldn't do it. And the thing that made it worse was I couldn't even fully explain why. It wasn't like I thought the world would end if I said no. It was more like this vague fear of what it would mean. Like if I said no, maybe they would think I didn't care. Maybe they would be annoyed. Maybe I would lose something I couldn't afford to lose. So I just kept absorbing things. I kept saying yes and I kept performing. So that's what it actually was, a performance. I just didn't know that that's what I was doing at the time. I think about where that comes from, and honestly, I think for a lot of people our age, it goes pretty far. Like in school, being agreeable kept you safe. Being the helpful one, the easy one, the one who never caused problems, that got you included. That kept the peace. And somewhere along the way, your brain just filed that away as a strategy. Be useful, be available, and don't rock anything. And it works as a survival strategy when you're younger. Well, kind of. But then you get older and you're still running the same thing and it stops making sense. Because what kept you safe at 15 is making you feel invisible at 20. And there's a difference between people liking having you around and people actually respecting you. And I genuinely didn't understand that those were two different things until way later than I should have. Because the thing about always saying yes is that it trains people. Every time you said yes, when you meant no, you were teaching them something. You were showing them that your time doesn't really have a limit, that your energy is just there, available and renewable, that they can keep pulling and you will keep giving. And then one day you're resentful and exhausted, and you want to be upset at them, but you can't really be because you built this. You created the norm and then quietly suffered under it. I had this friend who just assumed I was in for everything. He was not asking, he was just telling me, we're going here tonight. We're doing this on Saturday. Be ready at whatever time. And every time I would just go along with it because saying no felt like being difficult. Like I would be the one ruining something. And there was one specific night where I was genuinely cooked. I hadn't slept properly in days, had a pile of things I needed to get through. Just need one evening of doing absolutely nothing. And he texts me like we were going out and be ready at 9. And I said, yeah, okay. So I went out. I was in my bed. I was in my head the whole time. Got home past midnight. Still had work sitting there waiting for me. And I just sat at my desk feeling this specific kind of drain that isn't even about being tired. It's about knowing you did it to yourself. He would have been fine if I said no. The night would have happened without me and nothing would have collapsed. I just couldn't say the word. And that version of me was so scared of being a disappointment that I made myself disappear into whatever anyone needed. And here's the part that actually got to me when I finally sat with it. The people I found myself genuinely respecting, genuinely drawn to, the ones where I actually cared what they thought of me, none of them were like that. Not one of them. They were kind. They were even warm, but they weren't endlessly available. They would show up for you, but not for everything. And when they said no, it wasn't rude or cold. It was just clear. Like they had a very quiet sense of what they had to give and what they didn't. And they weren't apologetic about it. And I never once respected them less for it. I respected them more. Because when they said yes, it actually landed differently. When they gave you their time, you could feel that it was a real choice. It was not an obligation. It was not them not knowing how to get out of it. It was an actual decision they made. And that's when it clicked for me. I've been operating on this idea that making myself fully available made me valuable. But it was doing the exact opposite. The more available I was, the less my presence meant. Like if something is always there, always on, always ready, you stop appreciating it. You just expect it. And I had made myself something people expected rather than something people chose. And there's this TikTok thing, right? Uh and I don't mean this in a weird way, but the algorithm just feeds you whatever keeps you scrolling. And we have all been on there at 2 a.m., not even enjoying it. We're just consuming because it's frictionless. It's just always there, always ready to give you the next thing. And because of that, you don't actually value any individual video. You just move through them. I was being the TikTok algorithm for people in my life. I was always there. I was always ready. I was always giving, and they were just screwing through me. And the people who actually draw you in aren't like that. They have weight. They have a sense of themselves that doesn't bend every time someone needs something. And that doesn't mean they're cold or distant or playing some kind of game. It just means when they show up, you feel it because you know they didn't have to. I started trying it, and not gonna lie, the first few times were genuinely uncomfortable. Like the first time I actually said no to something I didn't want to do, I had basically rehearsed it in my head beforehand for a completely low stakes situation. Someone asked me to proofread their assignment last minute the night before it was due, and I had my own stuff. And instead of just doing it anyway, like I always did, I just said, sorry, I can't tonight. I got too much going on. That was the whole message. And guess what? Nothing happened. They said, no worries. And that was it. There was no fallout. There was no weirdness. They weren't even upset. And then, and I sat there actually surprised, like, that was it? All that build up for that? But what stuck with me wasn't even that they were fine. It was how I felt. It was not guilty. It was not like I would let someone down. It was just normal. Like I would made a decision and the world had continued turning. That feeling was new and I didn't know how much I've been missing it until I had it. The thing I'm still working through though is that there's a version of this that goes wrong, where the whole boundary thing becomes an excuse to just close off, to be unavailable as a personality, to protect yourself so completely that nothing gets in and nothing real gets out either. And I've caught myself doing that, overcorrecting, going from saying yes to everything to being weirdly distant just because I could finally say no. That's not it either. That's just a different kind of performance. The actual thing is messier than both of those extremes. It's being genuinely open and genuinely caring about people while also being honest about what you actually have. Saying yes because you want to, not because you're scared of what happens if you don't. Saying no without guilt, but also without coldness. Showing up fully when you show up and being okay with not showing up when you can't. I don't think I've got that fully dialed in. Some days I still feel that old pull. Someone needs something and I feel it. That reflex to just absorb it even when I shouldn't. And sometimes I do it. Then I feel that thing again and I remember. But I notice it now, which is at least something. I think what it comes down to is this. The most attractive thing about a person isn't how much they can give you, is that they know what they're willing to give. There's something about someone who has that clarity, that quiet sense of themselves, that just pulls people in without even trying. Because everything they do feels intentional. When they're there, they're actually there. When they give you something, it meant something for them to give it. And you feel that difference. Even if you can't name it, you feel it. I spent a long time trying to be someone people would want around by making myself as easy and available as possible. And it got me included, but it never got me respected. Not really. And I think a lot of people are doing the same thing right now and feeling that same quiet drain and not being able to put their finger on why. It's because you can't give your way into mattering to someone. That's not how it works. You matter when you know where you stand, when you're not auditioning for every room you walk into, when you can care about people without dissolving into whatever they need from you. And that's the whole thing, really. Everything else, they're just details. That'll be all from me. See you guys in the next one. I love you. Ciao.